Hi, fam. Welcome back to the TDP, Tim's Daily Podcast. Today's Friday. We love Fridays. Friday is the best day. Of course, got to get through the first part of Friday to get to the fun part of Friday. And right now I'm in the first part of it. But it's all good. Having a good day so far. So while I've been working, I have been kind of anticipating something that was in the news, I think, the last couple of days. The awesome journalist, I know everybody has mixed emotions, but Tucker Carlson, who I think I trust Tucker. I've watched him over the years, and I know he's a right-leaning journalist, so to speak, or maybe that's an understatement. Who knows? I always thought he spoke true. Spoke direct and true. Of course, it's entertaining, but no, he did an interview with the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. So yesterday there was other news too, so I'll kind of bring them all together. But there was some news. They came out with Biden's, I guess you could say a verdict. Not really a verdict, but, they don't really want to. So the special prosecutor in charge of finding out whether or not there was wrongdoing with him holding on to some classified documents in his garage and some open boxes for years. Basically, the Department of Justice brought a special prosecutor, a nonpartisan prosecutor in to investigate that and just to find out whether or not there was any wrongdoing and whether they needed to be charges against him. Of course, he's the president, so there is a law about, presidential protections. So, although it's not very popular, there is protections for presidents because they do have a levy of information that, and they have to make a lot of decisions. And, they don't need that hanging over their head in the future, after their presidency or even during their presidency. They need to be able to make decisions without fear of prosecutions from people on the other political side. So, to me, when I look at it and I hear, oh, Biden has classified documents, of course he has classified documents. He's the president. However, he had these classified documents for years, back to when he was a vice president. And there's video evidence of that. The same boxes are in videos that have been shared with him in his garage and the documents sitting there. And there's speculation that other people had access to those documents, even foreign people, even like our foreign adversaries. So definitely needed to be looked into at the very least, I guess. Just kind of the same way, I guess, that Trump's classified documents, needed to be looked into. I think the biggest difference with that situation with Trump and this situation with Biden is Trump had those documents from when he was president. So, there's an argument to be made there that he was allowed to have those documents anyway. And that Biden wasn't allowed to have those documents because he wasn't actually the president. He wasn't in charge of those documents. They theoretically did not belong to him. They belonged to, our national archives or whoever. His excuse was his staff moved a bunch of things when he moved out of the office, apparently, of the vice president, and he didn't know where they put them. Which I thought was weird because, why would his staff put the documents in his garage? That don't make no sense, does it? So Mr. Vice President, congratulations on such a good vice presidency. We're here to help you move all of these documents into the archives. Okay, go ahead. So how do they get from that to, oh, we're going to set them here next to in your garage? That makes no sense to me. But, I guess there's an argument to be made. He's the president, so is he allowed to have them? Either way, Either way, think about it like this. Or either way, the result of that investigation was, and I'm sure you've seen the news or whatever, but I thought the result was he's a well-meaning elderly man, but wouldn't be able to, is not like, doesn't have all of his faculties or I don't remember the exact verbiage, but it was pretty wild. I mean, and it's crazy to think that when you think, hey, he is the president of the most powerful country on the face of the earth, and he doesn't have enough faculties to move forward with to get a conclusion to this. I'm sure that the conclusion wouldn't be. It will be complicated at the very least. It will be a very complicated conclusion if they was to go ahead and play that all the way out. But they basically just said he was maybe too senile to do it, which is it's a wild thing to say. I mean, when you hear something like that coming from a nonpartisan investigative prosecutor, then you start wondering about the 25th Amendment. And in case you guys don't know, there is a clause in the 25th Amendment to where basically Congress can all come to an agreement that president doesn't have the ability to continue his duties because of his mental stability. So there's that. But, it was so, I'm sure Biden's team and Biden were surprised by, that outcome and that dialogue that was put into the outcome of that report, especially when it comes to things like examples of Mr. Biden or President Biden didn't remember when he was vice president or when he left the vice presidency. President Biden didn't remember details of his Afghanistan stance or things that he did, while he was vice president with regards to Afghanistan. Didn't remember. There was other things about his son and things like that too, but I'm not gonna mention that. I mean, look, he lost his son. That's already sad. Like, I'm sorry, that's sad, and I don't know why they would put that in that report, but I guess it seemed relevant to them, maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to mention it. But he did call an emergency press conference when we haven't heard from President Biden in a while, especially in the context of answering questions of a free press, right? So we haven't seen him do that. Basically, since he's been a president. We did see him do it once, and I think it was last summer. But he kind of gaffed that because I think somehow they had pictures of the notes, and it actually had the questions that they were going to ask him, who was going to ask the questions, and what he was supposed to answer, how he was supposed to answer those questions. So basically, they had scripted his question and answers and who was going to ask those questions. And, it rang dishonest, right? I mean, if you have a leader of the country that has a free press, and now they're giving answers, they're giving him the answers and all that. So that's kind of weird right there. But anyways, they called this emergency press conference, and he was defending himself. And I'm telling you, I watched it. It wasn't good. I feel bad for him because it doesn't seem like I remember when my grandpa was 80, and God love him. I love my grandpa, but I don't know if he should be running the country, Anyways, I did watch in contrast, I watched the Tucker Carlson interview with Vladimir Putin, who went into great detail over the history of Russia for the past 1,500 years, which I would say 60 or 80, at least 100 of those 1,500 years are only relevant because everything that happened before 1900 is probably not important to what is happening now. And the only reason I would say it goes back that far is just because World War I happened, World War II, and then the Cold War with the Soviet Union eventually became the country of Russia in the early 90s. And then we come to the agreement that Putin brought up that we've all heard, that the leaders that made the peace accords when the Soviet Union eventually split up and ended the Cold War, which was a good thing, right? But the agreement was, we're not going to move NATO into these other countries surrounding, basically the Eastern Bloc of Europe. And one by one, since 1991, one by one, we have, but NATO has kind of broke that promise treaty, or whatever you want to call it. They've broken that because they keep adding these Eastern Bloc countries to NATO. And Ukraine is I think one of the last dominoes to fall when it comes to that. And here's the thing about Ukraine. And you can listen to Putin explain it. I've listened to other people explain it in the media, on podcasts. I've even read it in some of the books that I've read that talk about this. There is like a bottleneck at Ukraine going into Russia that Germany used and other countries have used in their conflicts over the years. And this is another reason why I say the last 100 years is relevant. But they have used that to attack Russia. Also, the fact that America has used NATO and put missile defense systems in NATO countries, those NATO countries that we promised we wouldn't go into, we've put weapon systems, missile guidance systems that are nuclear capable on the border of Russia, 80 miles from Moscow. I would ask this: what if Russia put a missile guidance system or a missile defense system in Cuba or in Canada or Mexico? How would the United States react to that? I think we do have that answer. If you read your history about the Cuban Missile Crisis, this actually happened. This is kind of the same situation happen as is happening now. We had this agreement and quote unquote alliance with the Russia or Soviet Union at that time, not to move weapon systems near their borders, and we did it. And in response, Russia came in, made friends with Cuba, became economic partners with Cuba, and put Russian missiles and defense systems in Cuba that were nuclear capable. That became a big deal. And here's what here's what an actual president would do. They would create a dialogue with that Russian president or that Soviet president or leader and come up with a solution to get out of that without nuclear war. And that's what John F. Kennedy did to avoid a nuclear war, which would kill a quarter of the population or more. Well, there's a lot of research on this and a lot of papers and a lot of books. The Warren Commission, which, if you believe that or not, that was pretty much the government's stance. But, they didn't mention any of this, I'm telling you. He ended up getting himself assassinated by a lot of people who think that it was the CIA who did that. So there's a lot of evidence that contradicts the narrative that, we are supposed to believe when shot. The direction is shot, all that. I'm not going to get into that. But I guess my point is, we set missile silo and nuclear capability in all these countries that, you know, we promised we wouldn't. And now we have a conflict in Ukraine, and we are funneling money into this corrupt country, Ukraine. It's been corrupt for years, for decades. For what? Why are we trying to fight Russia? Why are we trying to start some stuff with Russia? Watch that. Just do me a favor. Watch the interview between Tucker and Putin. And you tell me if you think that President Biden could sit down and give an interview with unscripted questions and answer like Putin did. I don't agree with Russian policies, with Putin as a leader. I don't agree with all that. But that's not our country. It's not ours. And why are we getting up to the border? Are we trying to start a nuclear war? What are we doing? Who's in charge? Come on, somebody help me. Who's in charge? We got to figure it out. I don't know. I think a lot of people want to put their head in the sand and pretend like it's not happening. But there's somebody running our country, and it's not Joe Biden. He's not capable. I'm sorry. He's not. I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrats try to support the invocation of the 25th Amendment. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Anyways, hey, that's a heavy subject. I'm gonna stop. I don't know if I'm smart enough to keep talking about it. Probably not. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. And I will see you back next week. Deuces.